So we were able to read our settings, but we weren't able to actually set them anywhere. So they're not that useful. So now what we need to do is create a way for the user to set them. A good option for developing a module is to create a good user interface that allows users to do this well. For the purposes of this workshop, we're not going to build a user interface because that would be a lot of time that's not really focused on UMI itself. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to create a Rhino command that allows users to specify this. This is a little clunkier from the user's perspective, but it does allow our module to be used by automated scripting, which is nice, and it's easier for us to do in the workshop. So go ahead and open your Solution Explorer. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a Rhino command that when the user runs it, allows them to pick a template and set the occupant density override for that template. So right-click and Rhino commands, go to Add, New Item. And notice down here, there's an UMI section of UMI command. And we're going to say UMI set better occupant density for template. So kind of a wordy command, but it communicates what it's doing. So this is going to be the command that allows us to say, okay, for this template, I have a better occupant density I want to use, not the normal one. Go ahead and hit Add. And it creates this new template file. This new command file. Right? Here's the name of our command. Here's the run method. And all the run method does is print something to the screen. This is where we're going to change it to do something more powerful, where it asks the user for some input and then saves results based on what they put. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. The way this command is going to work is that when the user runs it, they'll be presented with a list of templates to select from, which means we need to get that list of templates so we can provide it to them. That's the first thing we're going to do. And like most other things, that list of template names will come out of the UMI context object. So we'll say template names equals context dot template library dot available template names. And this is a method. That's what we type. So we've got some squiggles. Let's see what we got. The first one says the type library is defined in an assembly that is not referenced. You must add a reference to assembly Basilisk. Basilisk is the name of the source code library that UMI uses to process the building templates. The version of the UMI module template that you installed to Visual Studio does not handle this step for you automatically. Future versions of the template probably will. For this workshop, we have to do this ourselves. The process is not that complicated. Go ahead and open up your Solution Explorer. Go find umi.betteroccupancy demo, and then this dependencies thing right here, and right-click it. Go to Add Project Reference. And then hit the Browse button down here. Now go to your UMI directory, which should be directly in C. So we go to C, UMI, and then find basilisk.dll and add it. And then hit OK. All right. So that did something. You can see if you expand dependencies to assemblies, Basilisk is now present here. It wasn't before. And that red squiggle went away. But we still have some green squiggles. The first one says possible null reference assignment. So this is that same thing we saw before where a building might not have a template assigned. Well, it's possible for an entire UMI project to not even have a template library. It's not supposed to happen, but if the project bundle got corrupted somehow, there can be a missing template library. And if that happens, we don't really want to run this command because there's nothing useful it can do. So we'll just add a check for that. We'll say the template library is null. We're going to just say nothing happened. We didn't do anything. No command to run, just pretend it didn't happen. There's no template library. And now what we have is our collection of template names. So the reason we got this list of template names was to present it to the user as a set of options they can pick from. And we get options from the user using some facilities known as Rhino get. Specifically, we're getting an option. So we're going to create a getter. I'll call it the template name getter because that's what it's going to do. And it's called a get option. And we got our red squiggle. Let's see. Are you missing a using directive? Yes, I am. Control period. Using rhino.input.custom. And it showed up there. Now we're good. Okay. So we have our get option. We're going to set some properties on it. We're going to set its command prompt. to pick a template. Okay. We are going to add those template names as a list. Add option list. And the name of the list is a template, like that's what's in the list. And the names are our choices. And we have to pick a sort of starting selected index. Basically, something was always selected, and we say what's selected at first. We're going to say the index 0, so the first template is selected first, okay? And then we're going to get the result from them, right? Which says, okay, we've built our getter. Go ahead and ask the user. Ask them to pick something from this list. Okay. Now, they might cancel, and we need to handle that. So if it is a cancel, and we got our red squiggle. Let's see what's up. Using rhino.input. Okay. We're just going to say, let's cancel the whole command. If they wanted to cancel that part, we have to cancel everything. There's no more useful information to work to do here. Okay. And now we get to, after they've made their selection, we need to look up what that was. So we'll say, what index, what number in that list did they pick? Template name getter dot option dot current list option index. We have to go through a fair number of hoops to get the information we need. Rhino get, and particularly get options, are some of the most complicated Rhino input facilities that exist. So we have to, be aware of that, and that's why we go kind of jump through these hoops to do this, because this is a powerful command that we have a lot of options to set. Okay, so now we have our selected index, and we don't want an index, we want an actual template name, right? That's the whole point of this exercise. So we should be able to use this index to actually look up the right name. We'll save our selected template name equals template names selected index. And we got a red squiggle, let's see. Oh, I misspelled it. Template names. And now we're saying, now it says cannot apply indexing with bracket to an expression of type IEnumerable string. So this is kind of a programming language error here we're having. Available template names doesn't give us a list with numbers. It gives us a generalized collection. So what we're going to do is we're just going to say we want to make a list of these names. We just don't want an amorphous blob of them. We want something we can count through. We get a red squiggle. And so we do command period to use system.link, L-A-N-Q. And that's what allows us to do this conversion between types of collections of things. So now our template names is a proper list of names, and we're allowed to say, okay, if the user picked the first one, give me the first one. If they pick the second one, give me the second one. And we're good. Now, to make sure we've done everything right so far, we still have some work to do. I'm going to pause here, and we're going to go into Rhino to make sure that we did the right thing. So we're going to do this, and we're going to say that pick the template, selected template name. We need our $sign. Sorry for interpolation. So all this work was to just get the user to pick a template name, and we're gonna not do anything. We're just gonna write that template name to the Rhino console, and that's what's going to allow us to make sure we've written all this stuff so far, just as a normal workflow thing. So let's give it a shot. And we created our new command. It was called UMI set better occupant intensity for template. So we'll run our command, and you see it says pick a template. So if I tap that, here's a list of all the templates on my project, and I can pick one of them to set that override. So let me pick Boston Red 0, and it says user pick template Boston Retail 0. So great. That means we're doing the right thing. We're on the right track, and that's great. So now we can keep going. The second thing we need to get is we need to get a override for this, an override occupant density. And importantly, what we want to do is we want the user to change the existing one if it's already been set. We're not always picking a new one. right? If the user specifies one occupant density override for a template, and then they want to change that, we should show them the old one so that they can update it. That's the way Rhino commands work, and it's just a good practice so that users understand what's going on. So what we'll do is we need to get that override dictionary so we can get values out of it and put values back into it. So let's say we're going to get those project settings, and we're going to get them the same way we got them before. Okay, we're going to go to the context object. We go to module project settings, and we get our project settings, which is better occupancy project settings. Okay, all good. And we're going to try to get a value out of that set of settings. So we're going to say project settings try or dot better occupant densities by template dot try get value selected template name out occupant density. So this says, okay, for those project settings, try to get the override for this template and store it in this occupant density value. And remember, as I said before, if try get value can't find it, it just uses the default for the data type, which is 0 in this case. And now we need to get a number from the user. We need to say, what would you like it to be? So what we'll do is we'll say, get occupant density. And we're going to store the result of this get. So Rhino get number, specified occupant density. So the Rhino get commands, the Rhino get methods work a little odd. The result is not the number they typed. The result is whether this was all successful or not. The number they typed goes into this variable over here. Let's see what our red squiggle is. Oh, I forgot. We also need to say whether they're allowed to not type anything at all. We're going to say no, they have to give us a number. There's no reason to run this command if you don't want to give a number. Okay. So we've asked them for a number. If it worked, the number's here, but we need to check to see if it worked. So we say if get occupant density result is not successful, return it. So if they canceled, then we'll cancel here. If something failed, we'll say the command failed. Now we know that this was successful. We got a number from the user. So we have a selected template name, and we have the new occupant density. Let's go ahead and actually store it, right? So we find our project settings. We go to our overrides dictionary. Okay. We look up the entry for the selected template name, and we set it to what they typed. You can see Visual Studio is helping me along here. And now we need to actually save our updates. It says, okay, we updated those settings, but we need to actually save them to the project so that they get persisted. And after all this work, we've allowed the user to pick a template, pick an occupant density, and save that value back into the UMI bundle. Let's see if it worked. Okay. So we haven't set any occupant densities yet. So theoretically, if we run this, we should still see zeros for everything. Okay, good. We got all of our zeros. Now let's try setting one. Okay, let's set one for set better occupant density for template. Let's set it for the office building. Okay, and let's set an occupant density of 0.01. You can see it was 0 before, now 0.01. I'll press enter. Okay. If I run this command again, set better occupant density for template, and I run it for the same template, you can see it's been updated. Now it's 0.01. That's great. That's what we want to see. And if I run this command, I should see I got an occupant density for the office, and it should be what we expected. So this is our office building. The gross floor area was 677 square meters, and we have 6.7 occupants. Again, we're not rounding, but you can see the calculation worked the way we wanted it to. Okay. I can set for a different template. I can set for retail maybe 0.02. Okay. And now I'll run my command again. And now retail is 3. And if we go to the results viewer, these should all be updated here too. So here's 0 for residential. Here's our retail. Here's our office building. Let's just finish things off by doing the residential as well. And I'm just making up numbers here. These are not necessarily supposed to be realistic. They're just used for explanation purposes. Ideally, when your simulator runs, you should have it run correctly. I would strongly recommend that. But we're just using numbers here. Okay, and let's run our command. And let's see if we got updates. Yep, and everything is here. So that is how you create module level project settings. When we close and reopen the project, they will still be there. And you can use this to store anything you want that is specific to your module for a whole project.